Oh,
Meeting is being recorded.
this meeting is being recorded now, so we will be careful what we say, but Mia is about to give us a market update, so go for it.
So real briefly, the market is starting to officially shift in a very minute way, but we are actually going into a little bit more balance. Houses are staying on the market 2 to 3 days longer. Our average sales price actually reduced this past week compared to previous weeks. So we were at like 490 something and we're down to like 480 something on average sales price. So that's kind of good to see. One of the things that stats have not been taking into consideration over the course of the last few months, and I know other realtors are aware of this, is the coming soon listings are actually fudging up all of our numbers because so many houses are on the market for 2 to 3 weeks in coming soon status. And then the moment that they go live, agents want to get credit for it. So they're putting it as live and then closing in within a 24-hour period, even though it's been on coming soon status for 2 weeks. So it's actually affecting the numbers in regards to how many days on market houses are out and how quickly they're selling and stuff like that. So the numbers are technically skewed just a little bit based on coming soon. And there's not a real easy way to accommodate that in our stats reports unless we like manually look at every single property. So nobody's going to do that. But the current projection is that within 7 to 8 months, we will hopefully see a little bit more of a balance, like a real balanced market where we're having equality and buyers and sellers out there.
A shortage of houses though.
Yes.
So it's not going to get to a buyer's.
It's not going to turn into a buyer's market by any means. We still have a couple of years to get to that unless something massive happens. But we are seeing just a little bit of a slowdown in regards to how, the fact that houses are staying on the market a couple of days longer and buyers aren't losing out as often and sellers aren't in as much control. I mean, where you're kind of finding out and trying to negotiate with that Sholo property. You have a little bit of negotiation again, where on the seller side, we didn't, or on the buy side, we haven't had almost any negotiation options in the last 6 months. So,
but isn't that just seasonal too, where we're getting into the fall and it's not as big as the spring? And last year it was opposite because of the pandemic, where the spring was slower and the fall started the pickup because then people started realizing, okay, the world is still evolving and the interest rates are low. And so that kind of just led it into the fall, then into the spring. And now it's just kind of
normally really slow down until after Halloween and then pick up again in February is kind of the general that we're used to seeing. So it is a little bit early for us to be seeing the numbers shift this way, but this is just in generality. I don't know if it's necessarily seasonal. I don't think in Arizona we're going to see a real slow season this year like we have in the past. I think it's going to be similar to last year where we continue on the rise. And I think buyers might have a little bit more buying power than typical rest of the year so far, but I don't think we're not going to have a slow season like there has been.
Right. No, I saw some friends the other day and they're trying to buy a house. And I said, first, they're having trouble finding something, obviously. And he's not a shy guy. So I was like, well, if you're somewhere and you see they're a cruddy house and when you want, go knock on their door and ask them if they'll sell it. He's like, I can do that. And I go, yeah, everything's for sale. But then I said, you start looking in November and December and the beginning of January, your odds are going to be a little bit more in your favor, because if you're serious about the house, but other people are like, I'm just going to wait. I got too much going for the holidays or stuff. So I said, you're going to have a little tiny bit more ability to do something that time of year. So,
and we are still seeing interest rates very, very, very slowly climbing. They're still heading up. You can still buy out and get an interest rate in the 2s, but you have to purchase points to be in the 2s right now. There's not much on the qualification side. So
you have to purchase what?
the qualification for interest rates on the buyer
Yeah.
side. You have to buy points to get them into the twos
Okay.
right now. So you can still have an interest rate in the twos, but you have to buy to get there at this point. And as they continue to rise, it is going to, that's kind of what's impacting our equalizing on the buyers and sellers, is the fact that the interest rates are going up a tiny bit. And if they continue going that way, then it's gonna obviously impact by a lot more buyers in the future. So depending on what happens in November, December, could change the interest rate.
Yeah, it's true. Or what else is, I mean, there could be a lot of things that could be changing here quickly.
By the way, Mia, I don't know if you said this, but a balanced market for us normally would be closer to like 20,000 listings on the market. Is that accurate?
Around 18,000, yeah.
All right.
18,000 houses on the market would be a balanced market based on our population and based on the buyers and sellers that we have. And right now we're still very, very low on our numbers.
11,000 today. 11,000.
It hit 11,000.
In Maricopa or Phoenix?
Oh,
Maricopa. It's got
By
that.
Maricopa.
I'm pretty sure it was state.
Well, at the
Yeah.
ADSREA meeting this month, numbers in Phoenix were going up. So there is more available than what there was.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, we're finally getting more houses on the market. And the interesting thing is one of the things that's affecting our averages right now is we have had more houses in the $4 million range sell in the last 30 days than almost anything previous. So because we have all these $1 million houses, $4 million houses selling, it's affecting our numbers. There is kind of a sweet spot actually between $0.4 million and $3 million that those houses are selling faster than they've ever sold before. And a lot of them are selling like within 2 weeks or less. And that's never been the case. That, $1 million listings have
Yeah,
always
I was
taken a
just
long
gonna say
time.
that's good for Rochelle. Rochelle's like,
Yeah.
I'm sneaking in right there.
Well, Rochelle, just make sure you push it, because right now there is a high demand for your house. There is a high demand for your price point. There's a super high demand for all of that. So don't let her go too quickly and
Don't be
too
shy.
slow.
Okay. I don't
This
wanna
is
be
where my
too
cat has
greedy
decided
either,
to-
though.
yeah, be greedy, Rochelle. It's been over a year. Be greedy.
You know, Rochelle, in saying that, we had that discussion with Michelle Rogers last week.
Mhm.
She was showing us, her house, and I could go single story and and I could go 2-story. And I was like, girl, why in the world would you even consider this small house with less here? You're going to Cave Creek. You're going to a place, the houses across the street that are the townhomes are selling for $1.2 million.
Mm.
You're going to have a half-acre lot. You're going to have, and she's I don't know if retirees want to go upstairs. F the retirees. You're not buying it. Who cares who buys it? What's in your best interest and your best pocketbook and your best thing to do?
Mhm.
I wouldn't even consider this small little house you're doing if you're allowed to build this house and bump your price up to over $1 million.
Well, and you have the lot.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
it's just, sure, you want to know who your end buyer is, but up in Cave Creek, your end buyer is anybody that has $1.5 million.
Yeah, it won't be just retirees, I guess. Yeah.
All right. So with that, I want to introduce our speaker tonight in case nobody knows this lovely lady.
Since we've never heard of her. Huh?
Her name is Liz, not Elizabeth. I don't care what her.
Oh, yeah, I know. I don't know why it
Elizabeth.
pops up like that.
And yeah, Liz and I both just recently read this book. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? And it is literally, you can
Yeah,
read
you got to
in
hear it
an
again.
hour. Who moved my cheese? It's an awesome little book, but I swear there were like so many life lessons in this tiny little book. It was amazing. You're showing off your peace and love. You should show off the arm. You were
yeah.
given peace and love, but for anyone who hasn't seen this lovely lady's newest, She just got a nice peace and love tattoo that takes up her whole forearm.
Wow.
I went big.
That is really sweet. I'm not a big tattoo gal, but that is very
I
nice.
wasn't either
It's
until you
very
do one and
fitting
then
for
you're like,
you.
shit.
It's very
Yeah.
fitting for you.
No, thank you. So we went on Friday with my daughter and my 2 nieces and me. So it was a group event.
Peer
All
pressure.
right.
Let me see it again. I want to see this. I want
How
to see it.
tough I am.
At least you gotta talk though when you show it so we can see it.
I don't
Yeah.
think they spelled it right.
Oh, shut up. They did.
Are you sure?
Peace sign.
It's
love,
not in
love.
Chinese.
Huh.
That's really nice. It's very nice, actually. Really well done.
Yeah.
Very fitting.
Look at the one on my foot.
That's great.
What's next?
Yeah.
All right.
So
So
anyway,
everyone
you guys-
knows Liz. So now you can
What?
go on about the book. I said, so everyone
Okay.
knows Liz. So now you can go on about the book.
Yes. Okay. So the one thing I do want to point out about this that I didn't on the other day, that it's a lot of people have taught out of this book. So like, I mean, it's hailed by leading organizations like AAA, Amway, Anheuser-Busch, Apple, AT&T, Avis, Bausch and Lomb, Goodrich, Hewlett Packard, banks, Morgan and Stanley, Shell gas stations, Time Warner, U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, 911 operators, Pillsbury Airlines. I mean, they make their employees read it and, you know, have some discussions about it. And it's also Dean Graziosi's favorite book. And that's where I had heard it before in hearing him. And then I was at the Goodwill and it was there. So it's really, really good and everyone should read it. I'm going to make all my kids read it and everything else. So I belong to the other book club and I put together, it was my turn to speak. And so I put together a presentation on it. And then I went over it last week in an event and now you all get to see it too. So I will share my screen. Okay, wait a minute. I will share my screen. And then let's see. I guess I find it here. And then I go here. And then I go here. Now, can you see that?
I'll make
Yeah.
it big.
But we can see all of your notes and stuff. There should be a way for
Okay,
you
you
to.
can. Yeah, there is. It's just on my other screen. So swap displays. Look at that. What?
There you
See
go.
that? Now it's good. Okay, but you guys are on another screen and that'll kind of make it crazy. So then, let me do one more thing here. All right, maybe I have to put you on my other screen. Okay. Okay, so Who Moved My Cheese, written by Spencer Johnson, who also wrote 1 Minute Manager. He wrote the 1 Minute Manager with a co-write with Kenneth Blanchard. So I think some of you guys have probably heard of that story too before. So it's an amazing way to deal with work change or life change, any kind of change. Now that I've done this, I got to see where my cursor is. Okay. So what's your cheese? What's the metaphor for cheese? It's like what you want or what you have in life. So your cheese could be, you know, a job, a relationship. It could be money. It could be a bigger house, freedom, health, recognition, spiritual activities. Your cheese can be anything, like, you know, the houses that we remodel, the situations that we're in. So each of us have our own idea of what our cheese is. So maybe after this, you'll figure out how to learn what is your cheese, and we can have multiple cheeses. So throughout the book, there's little sayings that they write on the walls. So that's what these cheesy pictures are going to be. So having and getting your cheese makes you happy. Excuse me. Who moves your cheese? So in Who Moves Your Cheese, it's about, are we flexible? Are we not flexible? Like sometimes you need to be more flexible versus this is the way we've always done it around here, and don't rock the boat. Don't change things. Don't try to make things better or different. This is just the way that it is. And so inherently we think we don't like change, whereas the reality of the situation is every single thing changes every single day, all the time. But I think when we're thinking of big change is when we don't like it or we're apprehensive to it. So learning how to adapt and enjoy the change can lead to something better. And then learning to cope with the unexpected changes can lead to better opportunities. And then adapting to the change can be better. So this is how they learn to change with the cheese. So the more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. So again, what's that big cheese moment in your life? I don't want to move my house. I don't want to have, or I want more money, or I need a different job, or something in that line. It's going to be more important the way your cheese is bigger to you. Okay, so in this story, there's 4 people. So there's 2 mice, and the 2 mice are named Sniff and Scurry. They are simple. They're just, like mice are. They have simple brains. They have good instincts. They do trial and error to find their cheese, and they just work hard at nibbling on their cheese. They pay attention to what's happening to them. But again, that is one thing that distinguishes us between animals. We have the ability to have free will and choose things. Animal usually has instincts, but think about how good instincts can be sometimes. So then there's 2 little people named Hem and Haw. And Hem and Haw have complex brains. They're filled with many emotions and beliefs. They always look for the big capital C. They can't just take some cheese. They have to be like, I need the big cheese. Where's the big cheese? That makes them feel happy and successful, but it clouds their thinking because, they're only after the one thing, the big cheese. So the other part of the story is there's quite a maze, a huge labyrinth of corridors, chambers, and dark alleys, dark corners. Then there's rooms, cheese stations, they call them, filled with the most delicious cheese that you can ever imagine. But there's also rooms that have very little or no cheese in them. So Sniff sniffs out change early, and he goes with the flow. Every day they get up. I just want to see where I'm going to be. Yeah. Every day they get up, leave their little houses, they put on their jogging suits, they put little tennis shoes, and they run around the maze trying to find cheese. So Scurry will scurry into action quickly as he's looking for the cheese. So Hem denies and resists change as he fears it will lead to something worse. And Haw learns to adapt in time when he sees change can lead to something better. So they all play a role in that little maze. So we need to find our way through the maze and succeed in changing times. Not all change is good or even necessary, but in a world of constant change, it is our advantage to learn how to adapt and enjoy something better. So do you change with the cheese, or do you stay stuck in the same cheese area? Okay, so Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw all started in the maze looking for their own cheese. They ran through all the corners. If Sniff and Scurry couldn't find something, they knew the way they went and went a different way. Hem and Haw kind of hemmed and hawed their way through the maze. So one day they finally found the great cheese at Cheese Station C. So every day they put on their little jogging suits, little tennis shoes, ran off to the Cheese Station C. When Sniff and Scurry got there, they'd untie their shoes and put them around their necks so they could get to them quickly, where Hem and Haw threw the shoes haphazardly wherever they wanted. They just got comfortable with their cheese and, just took advantage of it. So Hem and Haw started getting comfortable, waking up later, sleeping in, and putting their boots up, so not paying any attention. Hem and Haw soon regarded the cheese as their cheese, as if they were entitled to it. Their confidence grew into arrogance of success. Sniff and Scurry, in contrast, never took the stash for granted and made sure to keep an eye out for any changes to the supply. Consequently, the 2 mice noticed the amount of cheese was slowly but steadily declining. So Sniff and Scurry every day would measure the cheese, sniff the cheese, check out the cheese in the room, make sure everything was good. whereas Hem and Haw just came in, sat in their chairs, ate their cheese, and paid no attention to what was happening in the room surrounding them. So Sniff and Scurry noticed the cheese was starting to not taste as good and the supply was going to dwindle in time. Sniff and Scurry took off back into the maze straight away. The mice did not overanalyze anything. They had their little shoes tied around their neck. They put them on and off out into the maze without even thinking anything of it. Once Sniff and Scurry realized that cheese station C was almost out of cheese, they moved on without stressing too much about it. They easily went out into the maze again, and luckily they found a huge stash at another station, cheese station N. Hem and Haw had not noticed the changes in the cheese, and one day they got back to C and yelled, "What? No cheese? Who moved my cheese? It's not fair." And I had a son that said that all the time. It's not fair. It's not fair. So, they didn't even notice that Sniff and Scurry were gone. So just no cheese. So if you do not change, you can become extinct. So one day Haw wanted to move on, but Hem said, "Why should we change? We are special. We are entitled to these benefits." They overanalyzed the cheese not moving. Even though Hem and Haw were hungry, they were still too fearful to explore the new paths in the maze. Instead, they smashed down the walls of Cheese Station C to see if there was something to eat behind them, but all in vain. They stayed later, they worked harder, they banged holes through the walls, but still no cheese. So what's the definition of insanity again? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different outcome. So they were stuck in their little room, just assuming that the cheese will appear again. So then Hem actually one day looked at himself and not Hem, I'm sorry, Haw looked at himself and just started laughing. Hence the name ha 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 ha. So he started laughing and realized what fools he was. They were becoming emancipated because they wouldn't go out and look for the cheese. So he decided, what if I weren't afraid? Would I go look for more cheese? So Haw stuck his head out into the maze, wondering how he got himself into this cheeseless situation. Why didn't I get up and move with the cheese sooner? Haw thought, what would you do if you weren't afraid? He realized it was the fear that froze himself away from action. He went out and then realized the maze wasn't as scary as he thought it would be. He promised himself he would stay alert and expect changes to happen and look for it. So he had to go find his little shoes because they couldn't find them. He put them back on, and in the book, he talks about it. He really hems and haws about going past that threshold and then decides he's brave enough to go out into the maze and face finding the cheese. So then he realizes that the cheese was starting to get smaller and it did smell, and they knew that, but they weren't paying attention to it. So smell the cheese often so you know when it's getting old. Haw realized when you change what you believe, you change what you do. Haw learned from Sniff and Scurry to not overcomplicate things. They kept life simple. When the cheese changed, they moved with the cheese. So imagine yourself enjoying your new cheese, lead you to it. How many times have we heard that statement in some of our trainings and what we listen to, and especially the Tony Robbins stuff? Visualize yourself, at the end game. Visualize the house you want, visualize the money, visualize the home you want in, the White Mountains. When you visualize it, it leads to you finding the new cheese. So Haw eventually discovered a good way to deal with his fear. He visualized himself sitting atop of a huge wedge of his favorite cheese, soft rind French brie. After visualizing his goal, Haw moved on to find new cheese, but Hem refused to budge. He stayed at the empty cheese station, angry and emancipated, and crucially, far too afraid to go out and search for cheese. Haw even went back and tried to get Hem to come out, and he would not come back out. So he ran through the maze and left the little writings on the wall, hence look at the writing on the wall, and went out to find out Hem. So move in a new direction helps you find new cheese, movement in a new direction. Ha found the courage to move on, even though he was all alone and still scared when he started his journey. But he slowly gained confidence. Although he came across just a few bits of cheese early on, he was still proud of himself for having come so far. Life just felt better now that he was no longer dominated by his fears. So he had little bits of success along the way, and he would find little bits of cheese and he'd put them in his pocket to take back to him. And he would eat a little bit, but he constantly knew he was not finding the big cheese again. He was not finding the big cheese station. So he didn't let those little pieces deter him, but they kept him going. So Ha learned how important, an important lesson, that fear you let accumulate in your mind before you move in a new direction is usually much more intense than a new situation actually deserves. So how often have we done that, where we hold ourselves back because of a fear or a reluctancy, and then we do it and we're like, oh, it wasn't so bad. So when you stop being afraid, you feel good. So gradually Ha began to regain his full strength and confidence. Full of anticipation, he searched the maze until he found Cheese Station N and tons of cheese, the place where Sniff and Scurry had been all along. So the quicker you let go of the old cheese, the sooner you will find the new cheese. So we've all learned that too. You know, the quicker you let go of the bad and just cleanse yourself of that and move on, it's amazing how much faster you can find this stuff sometimes. So if there's one thing we all know about life, it's that change is inevitable. So how do you handle change? To not only cope, but thrive in a changing environment, you'll need to develop the kind of attitude and mindset that makes adapting to change less frightening and more rewarding. It's safer to search in the maze than remain in a cheeseless situation. Just true, because you just keep thinking it's going to come, fall from the sky, and it is not. So these are just some of his other writings on the wall. So old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese. When you see that you can find and enjoy new cheese, you change course. Noticing small changes early helps you adapt to the bigger changes that are to come. Ha's summary, look for the handwriting on the wall. Like I say, sometimes it's right in front of us. We just shoo it away. So the summary is for Ha that change happens. They, and who is they, keep moving the cheese. So who's moving your cheese? Anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move. Monitor change. Smell the cheese so you know it's getting old. Adapt to change quickly. The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy new cheese. Change. Move with the cheese. Enjoy the change. Savor the adventure and enjoy the new cheese. So be ready to change quickly and enjoy it again and again. They keep moving and they keep moving with the cheese. So move with the cheese and enjoy it. What is your cheese? And there you have it. So I just want to say real quick, I got to put you all back in my, so I don't have to look up, or I can stop sharing my screen, right? Then you'll come back. So, I mean, I think we've all had incidents like this, but I have to say, you know, so in this book, there's at the beginning of the book, there's a a high school reunion and friends are getting together. So the one friend says, he tells the parable of this story, and at the end, they all meet again to discuss it, you know, a day later and go back through it again. So in reading it, you know, years ago, I say we were in the cell tower business and work just came to us. I mean, it just, you know, it was the cheese. It just fell. It was just here. Well, we weren't affected at all in 2008, 9, 10, 11 by anything. I mean, we had the busiest, best years ever, but that's because they were building out the network. And, you know, there wasn't time for it to be like, oh, there's a economic crisis. No, there's not. But interestingly enough, in 2011, I started to see a change. Oh, there wasn't quite as much work. Oh, now that we have to go through somebody else. Now there's another person in, you know, now we're not going straight to the vendor. Now there's somebody else always there. And then there was always this, you know, the years kind of went on, 2012, 2013, where we had a little bit, but not near. And there was always somebody dangling a carrot out there. Oh, Sprint's going to have all these sites. So some of our team members went and got a few other jobs. And I was like, what? You can't leave us. You got to stay here. You got to wait. It's coming back. And then it just got it just got fewer and fewer and fewer and just saturated with other people. And, in reading this, I just laughed to myself and thought, we did not change with the cheese. We didn't move with the cheese. We didn't do anything. We just kept thinking the cheese is going to come back. The cheese is going to come back. And, then we got into fortune builders, but that's a whole nother, another sidekick and wreck. But it's just funny. It's like, how often do we do that we stay in that same rut, or we stay in that same thing thinking, oh, surely it's going to change. Surely it's going to come back around. The change that happened will go back to the other change, and it doesn't. So I don't know. So I thought, as Marie and I said, we just thought it was an excellent book.
Well, what I liked about it so much is I literally could visualize, especially at the end when he starts to talk about, kind of comparing yourself to the different characters and how do you react to change. And one of the, like as Liz says, there's kind of like a little side story where the guy is telling people this cheese story and then they talk about it. And one of the guys that he tells comes back and he's like, oh my gosh, I just compared like every employee in my firm and like matched them up to who they are in the book, and was able to, based on knowing their personality, give them new roles within the company that made sense for what they like to do, and just applying that into his business. I mean, I guess it's similar to some of these other personality tests, but when I read it, I immediately just thought of, even my engineering job before I left. At one point we bought another company bought us, then we bought another company. And every time there was always massive change in upper management and how things had to be done on a day-to-day basis, different timesheet system, whatever. And I could literally like picture the different people in the office of like, who was hem, who was like, I'm just not having this. I've been an engineer for 30 years. I don't need to change how I do things. I don't want to learn a new system. I don't want this. I just deserve to be here and should be left alone and just keep enjoying doing what I'm doing, right? And then you had the people that in the beginning were not comfortable with the change, but eventually, like Haw, came around and accepted it. But then you had, and it was usually the younger folks who were just like, all right, this is the way we do things now. Cool, let's go. Like, let's go with the flow. Let's learn this new stuff. Oh, this new system's actually pretty cool. We can do this. It was just so interesting that I could literally take that and then just like apply it to people and see like, oh, that's how you react to change. Okay, I get that.
Well, and I think with that, that's one of the big points of that story at the end. It's like when that happens and your cheese gets moved, instantly now be like, okay, I'm going to be sniffing. I need to figure this out. And it kind of, instead of taking it like, I don't want change, embrace the change, figure out how you can be, who you can be in the change and move with it, because it's not going to go back to that other way. Change is inevitable every single day. It's like, so instead of, and I can be 1,000% guilty of that. I'm not going to do that. I don't want that. I don't want it to change. Why can't it just be this way? Instead of now I'm going to think, okay, it changed. What am I going to do? What am I going to do to adapt to it? And how am I going to move with it? Instead of bitching about it being the change.
I know, we revert into like toddlers and throw like a temper tantrum. Like, no.
Yeah.
Don't make me do this.
No, that's exactly it. And, and like we say, we might not see it in ourselves, but then you can see it sometimes in your teammates and your workmates and whoever. Like, oh my gosh, I was just with a friend of mine on Saturday all day. I love her. I'm with her, but I'll never go with her alone again, ever. I mean, talk about somebody that won't move with the cheese and change. I was just like, do you know how negative you are? Do you know how complaining and, all this stuff? And I knew that when there's a diversion with somebody else, like I was listening to that Compound Effect, and he talks about who's your 3-minute friends, your 3-hour friends, and your 3-day friends. And alone, she would be a 3-minute friend. With somebody else, she could be a 3-hour friend. There's no way she could ever be a 3-day friend. And I don't mean that poorly. I just mean that, like, she's she's a haw, or not a haw, she's a hem. She's not going to move.
What did you want to say, Wendy?
I was just going to thank you guys for presenting this. This is not the first time I have been shown a presentation of this book. First time was probably, well, I know it was over 20 years ago. A manager where I worked had read the book, and she was presenting to our team, and obviously I was much younger then. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I was just annoyed that I sit through the presentation because I didn't. It's like I got claims to process over here. Leave me alone. But when I saw that you were presenting this again, it's like I remembered enough about what's taught in the book, and for me now it's even more relevant. It's a very relevant book. I don't care where you are in your life and your career. Thank you. I think I really needed that reminder right now, because my cheese has been moving all over the place for the last couple of years, and I'm chasing it, but I'm not resistant to it. It's like, it's good. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, when I saw it and then I read it and I came to her and I said, you have to read this book right now. And I said, it won't
And
take
I
you
literally
long.
gave it back to her 2 days later. I was like, I read the whole book. It took me like an hour. It was great. Like I couldn't put it down.
I think I need to go pick it up.
Yeah, well, look at the goodwill.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's it. And I love the visualization part of it, where again, we're taught that how many times to visualize what it is that we want and see ourselves enjoying it and see ourselves on top of the cheese and doing that. And sometimes I think, is that bad? I get in my brain, oh my gosh, that seems like I'm being conceited, or I'm being this, or, if I'm seeing myself in the kingpin, then, is that really is that a good, true thought? And then you're like, yeah, you have to visualize yourself getting to where you want to be so that your brain knows that, our subconscious mind knows that where we want to be, and it looks for it. It's like that same saying, when you buy a car and then you see that freaking car everywhere. And you're like, how come everybody has the same car as me now? Whereas before they were all there, your mind wasn't tuning into it. So when we visualize it and we're telling our mind what we're looking for and what we look like and what we want to look like, then it's looking for it. It's out there constantly, seeing a different thing. It's just like how our minds have changed now when we're all in this renovation business. Maybe not all of us. When you see a fire on TV, on the news, you're like, oh, there's a potential. After you make sure everybody's okay. But it's that thing. You're driving down the street and you are noticing, oh, that house I might need to call that house. Because we changed our visualization on what we're looking for. We're not looking for the nicest house anymore. Now we're looking for the nastiest house, then the nicest house, and what we can do to have it become that way. So that's it. It's changing that vision. And instead of being stuck in one place, not fair. Literally, my son used to say that to me all the time with his little list. It's not fail. It's not fail. Say, well, life isn't fair. It just equals out in the end. And he hated that.
Yeah, and I loved in the book how simple they made it, of just, it's 2 mice and then 2 little people. They say they're shrunken down to mice size and they're running through this maze, and like you could just visualize and see that. And I think, one thing too is they talk about how the mice every day, they never changed their tactic, right? They found that spot and they ran back home. I think one thing that they added with Hem and Haw, the 2 little people, is once they got comfortable and the cheese was always there, they moved their family in. They built a house right next to the cheese factory. Everybody come hang out near my cheese. I'm cool. Everything's good. Got relaxed. Got a little fat, put their tennis shoes in the corner. And then when they eventually Haw eventually decided, I gotta leave, like his sweatpants didn't fit him. He couldn't find his tennis shoes. Like he had gotten so lazy and in routine. And I think that happens with so many of us, you get to a point where things are flowing or you're just used to whatever that way of life is, whether it's good or bad, you get into a rhythm. And then when something shakes it up, you're like, I don't know how to adjust to this, and so I just think it's such an important lesson to just realize that you can choose how you approach things and how you let things affect you and how you change, whether you want to just talk about changing with the times or whatever, but we all know change is inevitable. It's constant, no matter if we're old, young, healthy, unhealthy, have kids, grandkids, something in your life is constantly changing. It's not even just always about your career. So yeah, I think that's, one of the questions, like, what is your cheese? And at different times of your life, it could be different things that are changing,
Yeah.
Janet,
So
you're
y'all
showing
know-
us your beautiful face. Do you have something to say?
Yes, no, I was cooking and I heard the whole thing, and I just want to say, guys, thank you so much. This is so good. And I was listening to one of these, you always something on Facebook pops up, and there was this guy talking about how our brain gets used to one thing, and then when change comes, how we don't like that, and how some people like it's hard for us to change if we're not used to being reading or being in school or something, and then you're gonna go back to school and so on. It's hard to get adjust to that, but at the beginning. So it's because our brain is he likes to be lazy. He likes to be in that mode the same time, always and always.
Doesn't like pain. Our brains don't like pain. They like pleasure. So when there's pain, when there's change, it doesn't like it. And so, but we are in control of our brain. So we need to train it to be like, oh no, change is good. Woo! Let me get my tennis shoes on and run with the run with the change.
And that happens when we get sick, if we get cancer or so on. So sometimes the knowing of getting cancer will kill us more than the own illness. So it's just because of that we're not used to that, and we know that it's bad, and so yeah, so it's just it's amazing. But thank you so much, guys. This is very, very good.
Good. Well, good. Yeah, when Marie said about tonight, I said I can do my presentation on who moved the cheese. She's like, yes, because I just and it's just like what Mia at the beginning of the presentation. What are we doing right now? We're listening, watching for the change. We're smelling the cheese. We're watching the size of it. If we don't stay on top of that, then 6 months from now, we're all like, oh my gosh, why isn't it flying off the shelf? Why isn't this happening or that happening? And it's that exactly it. It's paying attention to what's happening in our market, in and around, and so we're not shocked, and that's, I tell you, in October of 2018, the interest rates went up, and what that did to two of my houses was not good. And I didn't see it coming, didn't know what it meant. And then those houses ended up staying on the market too long. And then when it came time, after the new year, then they looked like they were on the market for 120 days. So people thought something was wrong with them, and there wasn't anything wrong, but I didn't keep up with the change. I didn't watch it. And then I sat on these houses forever, and there wasn't any reason to. I needed to see what was happening in the beginning. Do you lower price? Do you add in something? I mean, what do we see that's happening? Paying attention right away instead of just sitting on the cheese and thinking, oh, gee, my house has been on the market for 30 days and all the average on the market is 12 days. Well, why? Why is it sitting there? Finding it out and not just thinking, it's a great house. Somebody's just gonna wait it out instead of moving with that cheese and finding out what we have to do. So I think it's good. Yep. Anybody with anything else to share on that? What's your?
Actually, this is probably not kind of cheesy, cheesy, but but we had a friend that she has a condo in the Biltmore area, and she put it to sell because the HOA went up to 650, and now she's kind of stuck with it because it's been in the market for how long, Stuart? 2 months, and she just have 5 offers.
No, 5 looks.
Oh, 5 looks, no offers. Because with
Oh,
that
see?
HOA, I don't know. So it's very interesting, that case.
There's 20 units available right
Come,
now. There.
Stuart wants to talk.
There's 20 units available there right now. And what
And the
happened,
HOA is 650?
yeah, what happened was it jumped up. It was 300. And what happened was they have to redo the water lines.
Mhm.
So it's coming out to something like $17,000 per unit.
Oof.
So they added that payment into the HOA. So their HOA went up to $650 per month until that's paid off.
Yeah, like
So
it's
Why didn't they do an
ridiculous.
assessment?
Yeah.
They should have
Yeah,
just done an assessment on there.
They
Not
Exactly.
probably,
Well, that's why I
the
think their
assessment would have been
HOA
17,000 per unit though. Does anybody really want to spend 17,000 on their water?
Yeah, but
Exactly.
just.
We had to do it when we had a condo. We had like
So
the
I will
siding had to be
say
replaced. It was a big assessment.
that's been happening a lot in the Phoenix area lately. A lot of these condos that were built in the 70s and 80s are now coming up for a lot of
Yeah.
upgrades being done. So everyone be very aware of that.
Yeah.
Do your inspections. The other thing that's happening is in regards to the HOA. Now, this one, obviously, they're disclosing the fact that there was an issue and that they're replacing water lines and stuff like that. A lot of these listing agents are not disclosing that there lawsuits against the HOA currently, or
Exactly.
that they're having maintenance issues with their plumbing lines or with their gas lines is a common one. And they're
That's
not
what happened
disclosing
to a friend of ours.
Yeah, so-
when she purchased it, they were discussing that problem then. They didn't disclose. And she
So-
said, I never bought it if I'd known that.
All those questions were just on my seller's disclosure, like all of those questions, like
Yeah,
it's
but-
there.
there's ways to get around not disclosing or not stating. I mean, it's against the law to not disclose. but
Yeah,
there's
that's
ways to
not
get
right.
around it. For instance, if you never lived in the property,
Yeah.
then you can say, I've never resided in this property and put that on the and just keep it as is.
That's what I've done.
I mean, that's something you can do. You can still get sued for it in the long run, but
Right.
if they can prove that you were notified. So if you ever called the HOA and said, hey, I want to know more about this water line issue, and someone is able to find that recording or that conversation, you can get sued for lack of releasing that knowledge out there. So there are
Yeah.
issues behind it, but it's a huge issue going on. And because more condos are getting listed and sold on the open market right now than ever before, because that's a huge first time home buyer option at the moment, there's a lot of issues that we're seeing come across the table with
Wow.
Yeah.
these
Stuart, your friend should offer to pay the difference and just like give it a chunk, even if she takes like a little bit of a hit, because oh my gosh, if there's 20 for sale in there,
Yeah.
she's gonna be sitting on that for a while.
Oh, yeah.
drop the price a lot.
Yeah.
Be
I would
very
just-
She already
competitive.
dropped 20,000 and no offers. She's had 5 people look at it and no offers.
Well, that's because those people look at that HOA and go, "Whoop."
Yeah, maybe if she changed
Well-
the HOA and like gave a credit towards
Where
that.
is it?